Hi, and welcome to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks Thursday Facebook Watch Party. For my first time viewers, I'm a retired 20-year veteran sergeant on the Los Angeles Police Department, and I am not afraid to pull the covers back, provide an insider's perspective on police culture, help you decipher police code talk, and offer ways in which we might better navigate through that system when possible. The goal is for everybody at the end of a police encounter to go home safely. Today, I'll be discussing Phoenix police officers, you've seen the video, assaulting a couple coming out of a dollar store allegedly after their baby picked up a doll worth $1. I'll be talking about here in California a local Costco shooting incident involving an off-duty LAPD officer. And I will also be updating you today in this broadcast regarding more reports of illnesses by Americans in the DR. And some time ago I talked about a shooting incident in Miami-Dade involving one of their officers, Jonathan Aleda. Well, there's an update. The victim, Charles Kinsey, was involved in that on-duty shooting incident as he was tending to one of his autistic clients. And so now, get ready for Sergeant Dorsey Watch Party.
Would you call yourself a critic of police? I want justice. I want accountability. And I want there to be an end to the taking of black lives.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Thursday. I'm so used to saying happy hump day that I almost said happy hump day, but happy Thursday. Now, let's get to it. You know, I mentioned this, one of the stories that I wanted to talk about, and this is an update to an incident that occurred a couple of years ago in Miami-Dade. There was an on-duty officer by the name of Jonathan Aleda who was involved in a shooting when he responded to a radio call of some sort. But the bottom line is there was an unarmed black man by the name of Charles Kinsey who was dealing with an autistic patient. Jonathan Aleda ultimately wound up shooting Charles Kinsey, who was proned out with his arms stretched out in front of him. And when Officer Aleda shot him, Charles said, "Why did you do that?" And Aleda said, "I don't know. I don't know." Well, a couple of days ago, he was found not guilty on 2 felony counts of attempted manslaughter, but a jury did find him guilty on 1 misdemeanor count of culpable negligence. So I guess in Florida, we got to take what we can get. And he's yet to be sentenced. We'll hear about that much later. But that's what's going on right now in Miami-Dade. It's reported that, there's been a lot of criticism with regards to the way the officers responded in the subsequent internal report regarding that shooting. And so thank you, a jury found him guilty of him being Jonathan Aleda, who's still on the job, by the way. I don't know if this guilty verdict will change that whole situation, but we'll see. Now, here in LA, there's been a lot of back and forth. And listen, I've been sticking my head into this group of LAPD officers and others talking about this off-duty LAPD officer who was involved in a shooting incident at a local area Costco. Now, stories are changing and conflicting. It was reported that the LAPD officer was feeding a 1-year-old child that he was holding in his arm when someone struck him unprovoked from behind, knocked him unconscious momentarily, is the way the story goes. And so when this officer came to, he got up guns a-blazing. He grabbed his weapon from wherever he had it and started shooting 6 times to be exact. He killed a 32-year-old gentleman by the name of Kenneth French, who is described by family members as nonverbal, mentally challenged, and a gentle giant. Now, that's the way the French family is describing Kenneth, whose parents were with him at the time and were also struck by gunfire back in the meat department at Costco. And his mom is in a coma, in critical condition. And I believe the dad has been treated and maybe released from the hospital. Now, the officer allegedly sustained some minor injuries when he came to after he was momentarily knocked unconscious. His 1-year-old child was unhurt in the incident. And yeah, there's an investigation going on. And so officers on duty, off duty, that whole I was in fear for my life situation is jumping off right now, because this is what the officer is saying, that he was in fear for his safety, and that's why he fired 6 rounds. Even though last I knew, LAPD officers were trained to fire 2 rounds in rapid succession, reassess the threat before you start firing off those other 4. Anyway, certainly LAPD officers are feeling some kind of way about that, and they are lining themselves squarely behind the off-duty officer. Now listen, we've been trying this thing in the court of public opinion for a couple of days now, and what's really going to matter is what happens when this thing goes to court, because if it doesn't go to criminal court, I promise you there will be a civil hearing, because there's a dead man and there's 2 people with significant medical injuries. And so, you can say what you want in the court of public opinion. The only one that's going to really matter is when they get in a real deal court. And so that will be somewhere down the road. But nonetheless, it's not even safe to go to Costco anymore. And I talked about this on my podcast. For those of you who haven't subscribed yet, shame on you. You need to subscribe to my podcast, Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. I talked about it on my podcast because I was sharing this tragedy with my son. He and I were headed to Costco on Friday of last week. And I didn't want to go because of traffic. And I told him, dude, let's go Saturday. It'll be better. Now, we would have been in that very Costco in Corona. I probably would have been in there at 7:45 because I go nowhere near closing. But we were headed there nonetheless, and I know a lot of police officers who live out this way go to that particular Costco. And I had mentioned to my son, talking about it, I said, well, we can go Saturday, and that'll be the best time to go, because sure, there's going to be a police presence on Saturday, because that's what police do. There's always overkill after the fact, right? After the shooting, they have police officers probably in every aisle in Costco. They may have even had some Corona police officers passing out food samples. I don't know. I didn't go to that Costco on Saturday. I went to a different one. But when I said that to my son, he was like, well, I won't feel safe. That's the worst time for me to go, when there's a bunch of police, because I don't feel safe around the police. And while I thought that was kind of hilarious, because his mother is the police, right? I am the police. And he doesn't feel safe around the police. I don't know if that includes his mom, but when he said that, I had to remind him, dude, you're around the police all the time, right? But to think that my own children, my own sons, sadly, don't feel safe around the police. My son, said, because he's silly like his mother, he'd rather be in all red around a bunch of Crips. Now, he's not a Crip or a Blood, but he just, to paint a picture for me, as if I needed one painted, he said he would rather be in all red and around a bunch of Crips rather than be someplace where there's a bunch of police, because he doesn't feel safe. And that's a sad state of affairs, that any young man, even the young man of a police officer, doesn't feel safe around police. That's where we are. And I understand, why my son feels that way, because leads me to my next story. 24-year-old Ryan Tyman, a black man who was sitting in his vehicle here in Southern California, talking to a female relative, saw some deputy sheriffs coming up, and they decided, you know what, let's just get out of here, because who knows what this is going to lead to. And so they tried to, the female was successful, she left. The deputies blocked the car that Ryan was driving, and ultimately it led to a shooting. Why? I don't know. The officers alleged that Ryan had a weapon. Now, they alleged that, but I haven't heard conclusively that he had a weapon. But listen, once they shoot him, they got to come up with something, right? I say it all the time. Once they shoot you, once they hit you, once they tase you, they got to come up with a reason to justify that use of force, that deadly use of force. In this case, it should never have happened. So they said they thought he had a weapon. I haven't heard that, in fact, he did have a weapon, but they surrounded his car, making it impossible for him to get away. He, too, probably didn't feel safe seeing the police, in this case, LA County Deputy Sheriffs, and rightfully so, because one of them shot him. And listen, he didn't just, shoot him once or twice. This deputy wound up shooting all of the bullets that were in his gun. And then after he used all the bullets that were in his gun, this deputy, he runs back to his car to get another gun. I don't know if it was his, throwaway gun. Now, I'm not saying that police have throwaway guns, but, he had another gun in the car. Why did he run back to the car to get another gun? And shouldn't he have had a magazine with some extra rounds on his gun belt? And if he did he shoot all of those too? And that's why he went to the car to get another gun to keep shooting? And while he's running hither and yon grabbing guns, did he take a moment to reassess the threat that Ryan may or may not have been presenting? Evidently not, because I think I read somewhere that this officer, this deputy, fired about 37 rounds. Now, I don't know how many rounds hit Ryan, but I do know that he was killed. And there was a police representative who commented with regards to this shooting and said that, the way they described it as, the officer saw this man that they alleged had a gun, and then there was, can I just say, contact? There was contact that led to a use of deadly force. Now, what was the contact all about? Was it a legitimate contact? Was it probable cause? Reasonable suspicion? Was there a real reason for them to contact Ryan and approach him, attempt to detain him, block his car in, making it impossible for him to leave? Was Ryan under arrest for something? Were they investigating a crime, or did they just see a black man out on the street being black in public and wanted to have contact that resulted in his death? All of these questions will clearly be answered in a civil court hearing, if not criminal, because I don't know if there's really an appetite for a criminal prosecution in this case. We'll have to wait and see. I'll keep my ear to the ground, and I'll come back and I'll let you know. I saw another article over in St. Louis. Evidently, there's a circuit attorney in St. Louis by the name of Kimberly Gardner who's added 22 more names to a list of officers. This is not funny, but who have been banned from bringing cases to her office. This circuit attorney has banned officers from even bringing cases to her. Now, this happened after there was a national research project that accused these officers of making racist and anti-Muslim social media posts. Now, this is 22, I said, more officers. So that means she already had a list of officers whose cases can't come before her. And they just added 22 more. What in the world is going on that you've got a list of officers who you've told the police chief, tell your people don't come over here bringing no cases for me to file or investigate or look at or review or whatever circuit attorneys do. That's how they get down over there in St. Louis. You would think that maybe the police chief over there might have some angst about it, but maybe not. According to the article that I read, it says there's a total number now of almost 60 police officers on this list. 60. So that's 5% of the department's force. There's 1,100 commissioned officers over there on St. Louis PD, and 60 of them cannot come to St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kimberly Gardner with no cases. Gardner sent a letter to a public safety director, Jimmy Edwards, and to the St. Louis Police Chief, John Hayden, informing them of these new changes and these new officers that have been added to the list of people who are permanently banned from bringing investigations over. So I don't know how this thing is going to all, end. I don't think it's going to end well, but I'm curious to know if Chief John Hayden has any anxiety about that. And listen, for those of you, family, who live in St. Louis, who have an interest about these 60 officers, because listen, if their names are on a list of permanently banned cases, that means that their name are on some cases that might be floating around out there that might put them in jeopardy in terms of the viability of a case. So somewhere there must be a list, there must be names of these officers who've been found to have made racist and anti-Muslim posts on social media platforms. And listen, if they're making those kind of posts, you know, when people tell you who they are, you got to believe them, right? And so if that's how they feel, that's probably how they police as well. I'm not saying, I'm asking a question, and you should too. Good news, good news, good news comes from Northern California. AB 392 passed 6-0. AB 392, for those of you who don't know, is the law here that's going to determine when officers can use deadly force. Officers are taught and trained to use deadly force as a last resort, not as a first resort, but they do. And so now here in California, they are going to be required to use other alternatives before they get to deadly force. They're going to be required to, police officers in the state of California are going to now be required to, and listen, you can do this very quickly. It doesn't take a long, involved process, which is what I said when I testified before the Public Safety Committee, because the unions and others here were trying to say that, you know, it was an undue burden to ask an officer to really think before he fires this weapon. So officers are going to have to really quickly determine whether or not you have alternatives. And if you have an alternative, then you need to use it. And if you don't, well, you too, sir, can wind up in court and be held culpable for some kind of negligence. Senate bill, Assembly bill, AB 392, passed the Public Safety Committee 6-0. Now on to the DR and these continued reports of folks getting sick, and I think the number of people who have died in the DR is up to 8 now. And most recently I read something about a group of graduates from Deer Creek High School who had gone to the DR back on June 8th, and they were at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Punta Cana. And at least 2 other people have died at that particular Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Punta Cana. Folks are falling ill. Some of these illnesses are occurring when people are taking beverages out of the minibar in their room. So note to self, you know, I didn't even know people really, you know, use those mini bars, because the stuff that's in there is really always overpriced, right? But if you are staying in a hotel and you are one who uses the mini bar in your room, be sure that whatever beverage you may consume doesn't have a broken seal on it and it hasn't been previously opened, because that's where some of these reported problems are occurring. Last July, there was a Maryland tourist by the name of David Harrison who died before going to bed. It was reported he fell ill, and then the very next day, David Harrison died of pulmonary edema and a heart attack. So if you have plans to go to the DR and wherever you stay, it doesn't matter if you're at one of the Grand Bahia resorts, because several of those sister resort, Grand Bahia, Grand Presempe, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. If you're in the DR and you stayed at a hotel, if you didn't bring your beverages from a local 7-Eleven, you might not want to drink anything out of the mini bar. Be very, very careful. More reports are coming out that, you know, people were there last year and got sick and didn't realize that there was a problem until this year, now that we're starting to hear more and more about it. So just know that. Now on to Phoenix, Arizona. I have been chomping at the bit to talk about this, but not really. Listen, that whole situation with that Phoenix family coming out of a 99-cent store, dollar store, whatever, and the baby 4 years old, or it was a small child that picked up a 99-cent doll, and maybe the mom didn't know. I can't imagine she would have encouraged her child to pick up a 99-cent doll, and who steals a 99-cent doll? But nonetheless, the video's out there. By now, everybody's seen it, and there was a big community meeting in Phoenix with the police chief, Jerry Williams, a black woman. Now, you understand all skin folk and kinfolk, right? Because when I saw the video that was up on YouTube where she was apologizing, sorta, kinda, and saying that, there was going to be transparency and an investigation and blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that police chiefs say, no matter their ethnicity, to calm the natives and to placate the natives, if you will. Code talk, company speak, the stuff that I decipher for you. Well, at this community meeting a couple of days ago, Jerry Williams just said, you know what? Somebody said, what are you going to do about this? When are you going to stop this? And what are you going to do about your officers? And she said something like, listen, change will come from the community first. What? Change will come from the community first? Your officers are the professionals. They're the ones that are trained in escalation and de-escalation and patience and understanding that even criminals, who don't want to go to jail are sometimes uncooperative, and now the onus is on the community? What? Well, I know what I know, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm not surprised at all that she said that. I'm not surprised at all that she did company speak. Because listen, you don't get to be a police chief and breathe that special air unless you're willing to speak company talk. So there's going to be probably a whole lot more said. There are some folks there on the ground that are mad as hell, and you understand why. I'm in contact with some of them, and you guys know if you need a professional who can fight fire with fire, because I can speak her language. Yeah, hit me up, sergeantdorseyspeaks.com. Would love to come and be a part of whatever next community meeting you have and ask Sister Girl a couple of tough questions. For those of you that are here and are watching this, if you haven't noticed already, I've got a scrolling call to action that I need you to do. I need you to like, share, follow, and subscribe to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks, not only on my Facebook platform, but I need you to like, share, follow, and subscribe to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks podcast and Sergeant Dorsey Speaks YouTube channel, and hashtag tell a friend. I share this stuff with you guys week after week, not because I want to anger you, but because I want to keep you safe. And so to that end, in case you missed something between Facebook and YouTube and my podcast, you can text the word survive to 58632, and you can see it right below my amazing picture. Text the word survive to 58632 for more information. That's part of my mobile text alert campaign that I have launched, and I will be in the very near future posting other information for you there if you text survive to 58632. Here's another update. Remember not too long ago there was a shooting at a Kroger store, and it was a white male who killed 2 black shoppers? Well, this thing is dragging on slowly, but what has happened is that he's been found, for now, incompetent to stand trial. There was a ruling in Jefferson Circuit Court before a judge by the name of Annie O'Connell, and it was determined that Gregory A. Bush is not currently competent to stand trial. Now, that's the ruling right now, but that could change. I imagine there's going to be some more testing, and there will be a follow-up hearing on July the 24th with regards to this Kroger shooting incident where 2 black people were killed by a white man. Now listen, he's not competent to stand trial, and I don't know if the judge is just erring on the side of caution, because it was reported that after he shot the 2 people in the Kroger, he tried to enter a church where there was a black congregation next door. He didn't get in there. I don't know, seemed kind of lucid to me if he knew to leave Kroger and go next door where he could find more victims. But nonetheless, the two people that were killed are Maurice Stollard, 69 years old, and Vicki Lee Jones, 67, and that was back on October 24th of last year. So July 24th, there'll be another competency hearing, and I'll keep my ear to the ground and I'll let you know what I hear about that. So listen, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here for my inaugural Sergeant Dorsey Speaks watch party. I don't know if you noticed, but this is a virtual watch party because I'm not here today, Thursday. Actually, I had to be someplace else, and that was one of the reasons that I'm creating this watch party for you today. I am right now, as you're watching this, filming something with one of my panel mates from, we were often together on Dr. Drew when he had his TV show on HLN TV, and we've been on CNN together. Areva Martin, the local area attorney, has a web-based show, I'm told. I think it's called Fox Noire, Noire. Not sure. I think it airs live. So I think as we're filming tonight, you will see it if you are able to get over there at 7 o'clock, wherever it is. I don't really know. It's a Fox group show somehow with Areva Martin. So we're going to be talking about that whole, prosecutor, police, interrogation, coerced statements, stuff from Ava DuVernay's documentary, When They See Us. When I come back to you next week, I'll have a little more information about that. And for those of you that missed me yesterday on First Responders Live, fear not. I'll be back next Wednesday. So same bat time, same bat channel, Fox Network, First Responders Live, next Wednesday. I think the date is, let me just see what the date is next week so I can tell you correctly. June the 26th. Look for me on Fox First Responders Live next week. So that's it, you guys. Until next week, be good, be safe. And if you too want to know how to survive your next police encounter, text the word survive to 58632. For those of you who are new, welcome. Thank you. Share, follow, like, subscribe to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks on the podcast platform of your choice, as well as here on Facebook and on YouTube. Visit my website, sergeantdorseyspeaks.com, and that's Sergeant SGT abbreviation. Also visit my other website, my main and primary website, sgt.CherylDorsey.com. There you will find more information about where I've been, where I'm going, and you will be able to read the first chapter of my book, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate, which chronicles my 20-year career on the Los Angeles Police Department, as well as provides you some tips and tools on what you might do to survive police encounters. The goal is for everybody, cops, community, to go home safely. Until next time, you guys, be good, be safe.